Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. And I guess if you're in the UK, I should say good afternoon, Jack.
Good
Um,
afternoon.
welcome to the Mrs. R Relevant Daily Draft Podcast, sponsored by the Draft Professors. Here with Drew, Jack. Brian's running a little bit late, but he will be here in a few minutes. Um, Drew, we did a mock draft yesterday. I see about 12 hours later. How you doing?
hmm I'm doing great just off that. So teased it a little bit, but got the Edge big board. Excited to show it off.
Yeah. So, as Drew just alluded to, um, we have been podcasting, I think, for about 10 straight weeks. You guys are breaking down defensive tackles and edges. We finished that last week. We're now doing the big boards. So, I am going to share, and the first big board we're going to go through is Drew's. Um, so, Drew's edge big board is Ruben Bain, Zion Young, Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker, Mateo Ugalele, David Bailey, Gabe Akis, Cassius Howell, Akeem Mesidor, Anto Saka, R. Mason Thomas, Jay Barham, Danny Dennis Sutton, Clev Lubin, Derek Moore. Um, Drew, do you want to take a minute and just kind of introduce each player on your big board um, for the audience?
hmm So first I have Ruben Bain. I mean, he's just absolute dominance from Miami. He's, in my eyes, the star of the show. He's the clear number one edge rusher, and I don't think anyone's touching that. He's a triple threat, can win the speed, power, technique, and that's exactly what I want to see out of an edge. Can play against the run well and just a great player. Second player, this is where I have him a lot higher than really anyone else I've seen. I have Zion Young. I think he's just so good in so many ways. He's got a great size, 6'5", 255 pounds, high motor, powerful. I think he's an absolute stud for Missouri. There are some things where I don't think his first step is good, not great, which is why he's down a little bit lower. But I'm insanely high on Zion Young, and I think he's going to be an outstanding player at the next level. Third, I have Keldrick Falk. Keldrick Falk, he's just an all-around amazing player. Stellar against the run, great frame. He's a very young prospect. He's turned 20 years old about 2 or 3 months ago. The part that gets me about him, he's a spectacular athlete, but he's not that explosive off the line, and his reaction time can be a little slow, which pushes him down to 3. But his ability against the run and just what he can impact in the pass game makes me really high on his kind of potential. Then I got Jay Parker, and Parker's name was talked about a ton before the season, but since it's kind of dropped off because Clemson's season has derailed. But I still think he's a great player, good athleticism, strong, good against the run. He doesn't have amazing bursts, kind of like Falk, but I think despite the Clemson's record or season, he still had a great year. Fifth, I have Mateo Uyangalele. He's someone also a little bit of contention. You'll see grades with him all over the place. I have him as a round 2 grade. I think he'll be selected there. He's got prototypical size for an edge rusher and has the strength and athleticism to produce in the NFL. However, I think he relies a little bit too much on that and still doesn't have a great pass rush toolbox. So I want to see him kind of develop that more, but his athleticism, power, I really like, and I think it's enough. David Bailey is next then. David Bailey is, I mean, he's just an athletic freak. You'll watch a Texas A&M game and it's impossible not to notice him just be stellar. Crazy athleticism, estimated 34 to 35-inch arm length, relentless while rushing the quarterback. In terms of pass rush, there's not really much you can ask for more from David Bailey. It's just for me his run game, he can struggle against that pretty heavily. He can be taken out of a play against a blocker. And that really pushes him down, and that kind of aligns with Gabe Akis, who I have next. These two players I have pretty similarly thought of in my head. I like David Bailey's pass rush a little bit more, which is why he's ahead. But Akis is, once again, another amazing athlete. He's a former wrestling state champion. You can see that in his play. Insanely strong, great pass rush toolbox. He's got good speed. It's just, I think he's a little bit not as developed as a pass rusher as David Bailey is, and he's a little bit worse at the run game. I'll be honest, I've never seen someone with against more read options than him. But overall, he's an amazing player. I got Cassius Howell, one of the biggest risers in the draft cycles. Amazing production, 11.5 sacks, I believe, this year. Great awareness, good flexibility, electric off the line. However, he's an outlier, extremely small 30-inch arms, and I still think you could develop a couple more pass rush moves. Going on to Ruben Bain's pass rush mate, Takeem Messidor. Explosive, great first step. I kind of think of him as a Tasmanian devil. Can get kind of wild rushing the passer at times, but he's got good arm action, high motor. He can get overpowered at times if someone gets their hands on him. He's not the strongest player ever, but I just love his motor and just how hard he plays. Another just superhuman athlete, Anto Saka, is next. 56 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. Great initial burst off the line. He's able to produce in a lot of different ways. He's relentless. And I mean, the athleticism just instantly translates to his pass rush plan. At times, I don't think he's got enough moves, and I think he just still needs to develop a lot more, but I like a lot of the potential I see with him. R. Mason Thomas is next. I think I'm a little bit lower on him than a lot of people. And I do really like a lot of what he can give you in pass rush. He's relentless, great motor, good speed, good initial first step, great bend, but he's insanely small. 6'1", 249 pounds, 31-inch arms. And if a lineman gets his hands on him, then it's not great. He can kind of get overpowered and pushed out of the play. So that caused him to fall down on my list. Then I got Jay-Sean Barham, linebacker converted to edge at Michigan. And I mean, he's just a supercharged. I really like his athleticism. He's a violent tackler, outstanding burst and ability to bend the edge. He can play with high leverage, can get hesitant at times, but if he can withstand from headbutting a ref, his stock's looking good for me. Then getting to the one, denied Dennis Sutton, great size, 6'5", 265 pounds. The production isn't insane this year, but he's got that size. He's a violent player, can bull rush well, good in pursuit, smart player, sets the edge extremely well in the run game. My issue is not great first step, can struggle with leverage at times, and his pass rush plan is just not there yet. He'll oftentimes just rely on the bull rush, which I want to see improve. Louisville's Clev Lubin is following that up. Great, very productive 2025 season. Great hand usage and placement. Outstanding motor, full toolbox of pass rush moves, but I don't think his first step is great. It's all right. His bend is average. He can struggle against the run game. I think he's a very technical player, but just some of the physicality and athleticism isn't there. Then finally, I just have Derek Moore. Translate speed to power, good athleticism, NFL frame. He wears his list says 260 pounds, but it doesn't look like it. Plays with good leverage. He's pretty versatile, can drop back into coverage. My issue is I think he's a great player, but I don't think he's ever going to be that edge rusher one outstanding headliner on a team. I think he's a good player who will get a couple sacks this season, but I don't know if he's capable of taking over a team's year.
Yeah. So, Jack, as you look at Drew's top 15, what catches your attention?
I think that Zion Young at 2 is will come as no surprise. Is the one that catches my eye. Yeah, interested to see him that high, and I guess just kind of interested to hear from Drew, because I think this is something I've been kind of thinking a lot about with the top of this class, is really like where you see the kind of cut off at the top for guys that can be the bona fide, top edge on their defensive line at the NFL level. Like where do you see that kind of line being drawn? Is it Bain and Young, or is it kind of further down? Where do you kind of see that?
So I can see 100% the top 6. I can see Bain, Zion Young, Keldrick Falk, TJ Parker, Mateo Uyangale, and David Bailey as being bona fide edge rusher ones on their team. I think Mateo's going to still need to develop a little bit to get there, but I can see the vision. And I think Gabe Akis has a chance as well. Cassius Howell's on the outside looking in, but I think the first 6, 100%, and then first 7, if Gabe Akis can develop, will be up there. But, I mean, to answer your question about Zion Young, I just see it with him. His power is great. He hits like a truck. He's got great hand usage, can bend the edge. You don't find many people with as big and as good a size of him, with his speed and power, and I think he kind of combines everything with what I want in an edge rusher. He can't become stagnant against double teams. He's got good, not great first step, but I mean, I just see it with him. I don't know what it is, but he's kind of my guy, one of my guys this offseason.
Yeah, and the one I'm going to shout out is Akeem Mesidor from Miami at 9. So Newton Owen podcasted on him, and they each independently came up with a first-round grade without even talking with each other before the podcast. And then they found out, oh, there's a little bit of, like, from a film standpoint, they had a first-round grade. Then they dove into the injury history and the age, and they pushed him down. But even you having Mesidor that high does kind of validate some of what has been said about Akeem Mesidor on both this podcast as well as other Draft Professor podcasts, that the film on Akeem Mesidor this year, he returned to school, and I think that just validates his decision. He's put together a pretty good year.
Yeah, the film for him is outstanding, but
yeah,
it's just he'll be 25 on draft day and injuries.
Yeah. So then Jack's going to go through his board next. So I'll read it real quickly for everybody on Spotify, and then Jack will go through it in more detail. So Jack's edge board: Ruben Bain, David Bailey, Keldrick Falk, Cassius Howell, TJ Parker, Malachi Lawrence, Mateo Ugalele, Max Llewellyn, Romello Height, Melkart Ebu Jaude. Sorry about that, Melkart. Clev Lubin, Zion Young, Anto Saka, Danny Dennis Sutton, Arden Walker, Yanze Pierre, Gabe Akis, Kenyatta Jackson Jr., and Anthony Lucas. Jack, do you want to give the audience a little bit more detail on the 19 edges that you have ranked?
Yeah, sure. So I think for me, the top two, I guess, is where it kind of starts. And for me, they are probably in a tier of their own. Ruben Bain, I think I said on the pod last week how much I love him. I think, yes, there are going to be some length concerns, and there has been a little bit of medical stuff in the past, but he's powerful. He is quick enough. He's got good enough bend. He is a menace against the run. He's got quick and advanced hands as a pass rusher. So just feels like maybe not as I said last week, maybe not an elite Chase Young, Bosa level prospect, but I think a guy who I'd be really comfortable with leaving the first round with. David Bailey is a guy who's grown on me quite a lot. I revisited his tape this week in preparation for this. He bumped up a few spots, I think. Like Drew, I shared a lot of the run defense concerns earlier in the year. I did see it improve. I don't think it's a strength. I do think it's actually still a weakness, but the BYU Conference Championship game, you saw him improve some of that, and that, as Drew says, he is already an amazing pass rusher, probably the most technically advanced pass rusher in the class, with incredible athleticism. So an easy player to project, and I think he's got the size as well, or enough size. I know he's a bit short, but he's got good size to translate to the NFL. Then there's a bit of a tier break for me. Keldrick Falk, who reminds me of Michael Williams. I think a guy who young, big, strong, maybe not an elite level athlete, but I don't think he's an elite level athlete. There's definitely some stiffness to him. Probably always going to be more of a good run defender than he is a good pass rusher. But I've seen enough from him this year to think there's definitely scope to develop. And being on that Auburn program, he certainly wasn't in a position to succeed. So I think he did well given the circumstances. Cassius Howell at 4. This is one where I'm just kind of throwing caution to the wind a bit with the length concerns and just trusting the tape. Howell, I think, is an excellent pass rusher, great bend. He is a bit shorter, and the arms are historically kind of outlier, but he anchors fairly well against the run. I don't think he is a kind of DPR at all. And I think the way he wins, like, he kind of bypasses the length concerns a bit with how he uses ghost moves and things like that. So I think for me, Howell is a guy who, if we're talking kind of true round grades, you're probably talking more of a second. But a guy who I think will bump up boards because of how this class is. TJ Parker, again, as Drew said, I think there was a lot of expectation and hype around him, and during the season hasn't lived up to perhaps what some expected. He does tend to beat up on lower level competition, and that's where a lot of his sacks have come from. But he's powerful. He's got good hands. sound against the run. So I don't think he's ever going to be like a bona fide kind of top edge, but I think a good solid guy I'd be happy to leave the kind of top 40, top 50 picks with. Malachi Lawrence, this is probably a little higher than most will have him, but I just love the traits. The length is great. I think it's like 35-inch arms, really good burst. I think his hand technique's good. He isn't the best against the run, but I think with the length and size, I just feel like that's something that can be coached up. So he's a guy I'm willing to bet on the traits a bit there with. Uyunglele is a guy I'd quite like to revisit his tape because I only watched kind of early part of the season, but I did like what I saw and I like what I saw last season. I think, big, powerful guy. I think he still needs to round out his game a bit. I think there's a bit of technical refinement needed there, but again, the traits, something that is always important with an edge rusher. Max Llewellyn. Now, this is where there's kind of another tier break after those guys for me. And then when you get to Llewellyn, the gap between him at 8 and even the guy like 17 is not that much on my kind of grading scale. So there is kind of a cluster of these guys in the middle. Llewellyn is good size. He is really twitchy. His game, he's certainly not talent-wise, but technique-wise reminds me a bit of Aiden Hutchinson in terms of how he uses the inside spin. He's quick. He's twitchy. Maybe not the best run defender, but again, he's like 260, so I think you can coach that up in him. Romello height, this is an odd one because I think what he does well is amazing. What he doesn't do well is something he can't change, which is size. He's short-armed, really small, undersized. I think he's playing in like the 230s, but over the summer he was listed at 228, I think. So he is small, but he is just an absolute weapon as a pass rusher. And I think at the very least you're getting a quality designated pass rusher at the NFL level who can be an absolute weapon on a defense that uses stunts and twists and potentially can develop into at least a serviceable run defender. So certainly an interesting prospect. Melkar Abu-Jaude is kind of a bit of the opposite to height, really, in that he's a big-bodied, less athletic, but very good run defender. Has had some real big backfield production this year. He has really refined hands, which I like. Now, I think the athleticism is what caps the ceiling, and which is why he's at 10. But I think a player I'm willing to just kind of plant my flag on, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm just going to trust kind of what I saw on tape. Clev Lubin, another player I really like. I think I revisited his Clemson game this week to kind of catch up and see how he looked over the last half of the season. I think maybe cooled on him a little bit. I was maybe a little higher on him earlier in the year. I think Drew mentioned some of the weaknesses to his game. I think shorter arms. I don't think he's a reliable edge setter. I don't think he's a terrible run defender, but I think he wins most as a pass rusher. Drew mentioned the bend is a little limited, and you definitely do see that. But I think he's got good explosiveness, and the hands are refined, and the motor is like relentless. So just a guy I do like a lot. Zion Young is another one who I want to kind of revisit the second half of the season tape. But certainly from what I saw, I'm obviously not as high as Drew, but I do think he feels to me like a very high floor player. I think really good run defender, heavy hands, and I think that's always something that is really helpful in translating from the college to the pro level. So I think for me, more of a floor guy than a ceiling guy, but you never know. I may well be wrong. I think Drew's in good company because Dane Brugler also has him as a first rounder, I think. So take that where you will. Anto Saka, I think this is one where it's like you're getting to the range where you're talking about tools here. And Saka is a really good athlete. He's really quick, really explosive. I think you see some really nice flashes as a pass rusher, and I think he's amazing on stunts, kind of similar to Romello height. I just don't see him as a 3-down player in the NFL. I don't think he's very good in run defense. I think, to be honest, he's kind of still working out his pass rush plan. So, like, for a guy who trades on that, I'd want to see it be a little bit more advanced than it is. Deny Dennis Sutton, another guy, big name, former 5-star, high-profile player. I think Maybe not what some expected coming into the season, although I think if you watched his tape last year, he kind of looks like the same player this year. Big, incredibly explosive for his size. Like, he is legitimately explosive, has a great first step. I think he's like 265, so he is a big guy with real speed. The problem is he's a bit stiff. Well, he's very stiff, and his pad level is not great. So you kind of limit that ability to convert speed to power consistently. So that's why he's a little kind of further down for me than perhaps some had him over summer. Arden Walker from Colorado. I think, again, a little limited in certain areas. I think run defense is his main weakness. But I think you're talking about a really good DPR at the next level. I think his pass rush moves, his variety in terms of how he attacks is something I really like, and feels like a guy who can, at least find a role at the NFL level, if not ever become a, true 3-down starter. Yonze Pierre is a guy I got to this week, and I was really pleasantly surprised with his tape. I maybe like him a bit more than where his ranking comes out, but I'm just kind of trusting my grading process on this one for now. Interested to see how he looks in the playoffs, but he's sub 250, but he plays powerful. Like, he will win with bull rushes. The Tennessee tape in particular was really impressive, but I also thought he looked good in other games. He is limited in terms of how he attacks. He is kind of a bit of a bull rush or nothing type of guy, which is funny for a guy who's under 250, but he's got decent burst. He's clearly got power. So, decent run defender as well. So I just feel like there's maybe untapped potential there. He's a first-year starter, so I wouldn't be surprised if he goes back, but a guy that I do quite like. Gabe Backus, I know that when we spoke about him previously on the pod, Drew and I think saw him very similarly, although our kind of grades of a little different in terms of where we see his strengths and weaknesses. I think we're very, very aligned on that. A good pass rusher. I think he is liability against the run in terms of how he reads it and kind of getting out of position and gap discipline. But I think a high motor, productive pass rusher, which you might not expect for a guy that size in terms of the 6'3", 275 frame, but he's good, and he's got a good ball rush on him, decent explosiveness. Kenyatta Jackson. Now, this was a guy, when we talked about him previously, again, I was a bit lower on. Revisited the tape on him recently, watched the Michigan game and the Indiana game. I definitely think that he's shown growth this season. I think he could end up higher than this for me, depending on how he plays in the playoffs. I think he's powerful, big-bodied. He can set a hard edge. He'll hold his ground. Like, the anchor strength is excellent, I think. I think he's good reducing inside and working over guards. I don't think he's particularly flexible. I think his pass rush plan is still quite underdeveloped, and I would like to see him return for another year, because I think if he does improve that, then there is a higher ceiling to it. But certainly a guy I feel comfortable, again, can find a role and will play in the NFL for a while, even if he's never going to be a star. And then Anthony Lucas, who I think has all the traits in the world, big-bodied, long. He's incredibly athletic for his size. But I think for all the tools, he hasn't quite been a consistent finisher. There have been too many plays kind of left on the table. So a guy who I'd be willing to kind of take a chance on because of the traits, but again, kind of falls at the back end of that top 150 range for me.
Okay. So, Drew, when you look at Jack's board, what's like the first thing or the one thing that jumps out?
For me, I mean, there's a couple things that jump out, but I went to the KU versus UCF game in Orlando, and Malachi Lawrence was a guy who I saw. He had a pretty good game. And I like the player, but it seems like you're really high on him, and I'd like to hear some more of your thoughts on him.
Yeah, I think, like, for me, it's the case of a guy who I think is a good pass rusher. Like, I think he's already a good pass rusher, and I think he kind of shows the ability to attack and win in a range of different ways. I think he's got burst. I think, he's 263, so he's got good size, and he's got good burst for that size, 35-inch arms. Like, there's not many guys on this list, maybe other than Keldrick Falk, who can match him for the kind of measurables. And I think, that is important at edge. I think it is a position where Size matters. I think that the bits that maybe I dislike about his game are the things that I think are maybe a little bit more fixable than some others. I think he misses quite a few tackles, which is really weird given his length. And there is a little bit of tightness to him. So I don't think he'll ever be a true kind of bendy, super great ankle flexion guy. But I just think, yeah, just a guy I want to bet on. Like the kind of guy who, for me, he's got technique, he's got traits. There's probably untapped potential there. So I'd say, like, for me, he is firmly a second round prospect. I don't think he's in the first round conversation. But a guy I'd be happy to take, top 50.
Yeah, and Malachi Lawrence is where my eyes went. So I can tell you, Jack, that Hank loves Malachi Lawrence within Draft Professors. Owen and Newt both graded him about that second round spot where you said you see him being taken. So I know that you are not alone. You may be alone on this podcast, and we'll get to Brian's board here in a minute. But I can tell you that there is a lot of Malachi Lawrence love within the Draft Professors. So, Brian, thanks for joining us. We put your board third because we knew that you were running.
Yeah, sorry.
We do all have to get paid. So
Yeah.
Day jobs take the priority. So
Hospitals.
I'm going to read Brian's board, and then Brian will give about a 30-second summary on each player once I finish. So for the users on Spotify, Brian's board is Keldrick Falk, David Bailey, TJ Parker, Mateo Ungalungale, Antosaka, R. Mason Thomas, Cassius Howell, Clev Lubin, Will Helt, Gabe Akis, Zion Young, Vincent Anthony Jr., Malachi Lawrence, Jay-Sean Barham, Logan Fano, Isaiah Smith, Derek Moore, Tyreek Sapp, Max Llewellyn, Caden Curry, Danny Dennis Sutton, Damon Wilson Jr., Joshua Josephs, Wesley Williams, LT Overton. And that was 25 edges. And Brian is Ruben Bain as a defensive tackle or an interior defensive lineman. So that is why his name was not mentioned.
Yep.
Brian, do you want to, again, give a quick 30-second summary on each player? And then Drew and Jack will each ask you a question.
Sure. Yeah. So of course, like I said, we have Keldrick Falk at the top. It's not a great class overall as far as at least for me, because obviously I have Bain as a tackle. As far as an elite type player, there's a lot of guys who came to the year like TJ Parker who just kind of fell back and they didn't develop or advance. Really, there's a lot of guys that didn't really improve overall. So at the top, at least, it's not a great class for me. So that's why I have Falk. I think because he's got a high floor. He's a really good run defender. He's got long arms. He's got some pass rush to him. He just needs a lot more development with that. I personally thought he should have gone back to school, but I get why he came out. He's probably going to go top 15. So it makes sense. Again, still a guy just needs probably a couple of years to develop. Bailey, of course, he's got, good arms length. He's got good pass rush skills. His run defense is not great, but, he's got all kinds of moves, pass rush moves and stuff like that. So, NFL values those guys. He's got good, not great, but good, decent size. He's a good athlete. So, NFL's going to value him. So, some people have talked about it too, but other people talked about it too, where they think he can end up still going in the first round just because, the NFL values pass rush so much. So, I have a second round grade on him, but still I could see him sneaking in the first round somewhere in there. TJ Parker, I have at 3. Just again, because this past year was not very good. He had one game where he had, I think it was 4 sacks, and otherwise the rest of the year he had 3 sacks in the whole year. It wasn't there this year. He didn't play well this year. He didn't really show much improvement from last year. His game is all based on power, really. He had trouble getting off blocks and that type of stuff. The talent's still there, of course. Again, he's another guy I still think probably the NFL will fall in love with just his measurables and stuff, and they'll still take him earlier than I would. I have a second round grade on him, but I think he'll still end up going in the first round. Mateo, again, another guy he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 270, but like his game is really based on like finesse. He's a lot of finesse moves. He's got spins. He's got all kinds of stuff like that. His game's not really very much power to his game, but he has the size and strength to do it. I think he just needs to develop it. But again, another guy who has talent upside, who could still improve and get better. Again, like you said, you'd like to see him develop some power moves and stuff like that. But again, a guy I have like probably like a second round grade on him as well. After him, I got Ento Saka. I think I've heard there's rumors that he's going back, but I haven't heard anything definitive or seen anything definitive. So I still have him on my list. I included guys that I think are coming out, or at least have said they're coming out. But Saka, again, somewhat similar to Langley. He's really fast, really explosive. He's got all kinds of physical talent. It's just his pass rush game hasn't developed as much. But even with his lack of development, you still see him getting pressures and getting sacks occasionally just because of his pure physical talents. But then also Northwestern kind of used him kind of weird times. Like they wouldn't play him. They had him like he was a backup last year, and I think even this year there was games where he wouldn't play for like a while. They were using some sort of rotation thing or something like that. I think it hurt his numbers a little bit there. R. Mason Thomas, again, we've talked about him before in the pod. He's a small, fast dude with all kinds of moves. He's really explosive, really fast. But again, those arms is what you worry about. Those are really outlier things. So if his arms weren't so short, I'd have him a lot higher. But again, that's something you still worry about. But I think he can kind of overcome it to an extent. But I think he's still going to be mostly like a DPR. And then we got Cassius Howell, who is kind of similar to Mason Thomas. A little bit longer arms, some differences and stuff like that. Little stuff I'm not going to go into right now, but just a similar type player. Going to be a DPR probably the next level. Really explosive, really fast, really bendy. Just one of those DPR type guys. Again, like third down pass rushers. I think his run defense is probably a little bit better than R. Mason Thomas's, but again, similar type guy is not going to be a great run defender. Cleb Lubin, I love Cleb Lubin. He's like 6'3", he's listed as at 6'3", 250. He's probably a little bit smaller than that, but even for how small he is, he's a really powerful player. He's got a really big, thick lower body. You see him on film. So he has at least that power in him, even though he's a smaller guy. That's something that you need to win at the NFL level. So again, and he's got some moves and stuff like that too. He could still use a little bit more development, but I think he's good enough. At least he's going to be able to play. And you're going to be able to, he doesn't have to be a DPR again because he can play the run. So you can use him you can use him standing up or with his hand in the dirt. So he can play pretty much anywhere. I think more than likely he'll probably play in type of 3-4 because his arms are not particularly long, although we don't have official measurements on him. But again, another guy who's got bendy, he's quick, he's got explosiveness, he's got some pass rush talent. So I think he's going to do well in the NFL. After him, I got one. Trying to hard.
Will Helt.
Yeah, I was having trouble reading my reading. Will Helt. I really liked his film from Purdue, and I think this year even just at Clemson he was doing okay. I think just the whole defense kind of just fell apart, so to speak. He's a big, strong dude, 6'6", 265, I believe. He's got some power. He's got some decent athleticism. He can drop a little bit in coverage and stuff like that. I think it's just a guy who's got a good floor. With still a little bit of development potential within him, but I think this guy's going to come to the league. He's going to, if he comes out at least, he's got a good floor, going to be a good run defender, give you some pass rush, stuff like that. Gabe Backus, another guy I heard Jack talking about a little bit, kind of agrees for the most part with Jack. So I'm a little bit higher on his play against the run, but for the most part, I agree with what Jack was saying about him as a pass rusher and a run defender and all that type of stuff. So again, another guy with a decent floor who can come in and give you some pass rush, and just be able to be a rotational type guy. Zion Young, I really like Zion Young, although he just had that arrest, so we'll see what happens with that. That might hurt his draft stock. So, but yeah, I like him. He's long. He's got power. He's athletic. He's still developing a little bit, but he still shows some pretty impressive physical skills. So I think he's going to be a guy that's he's going to get taken on day 2 and eventually going to be, by year 2, year 3, going to be probably a starter in the NFL. Vincent Anthony, another guy that's kind of like 6'6", 250-ish, long arms, just really athletic, but again, still needs some more development as a pass rusher. Decent run defender. Just all around, he's got some good skills. I think he's got a decent floor, but again, he's still got like some more development to go. Again, Malachi Lawrence, Jack was talking about him as well. I agree a lot with what Jack was saying. I really like his upside. He's really showed improvement this year too, compared to last year too as well. He's still developing, of course, like we said, as pass rusher, but there's definitely a lot of talent there. He gets like pressures and sacks sometimes just on more or less talent alone, because he's so physically talented. I think he can already do it in the NFL. I think he's got the talent to develop into a potential starter too. Day 2 grade on him as well. Barham from Michigan, of course, he can play a linebacker, he can play edge. He started out well playing edge this year, but it kind of tailed off a little bit, and I think he got nicked up or something like that too. But again, a guy who I think can come to the league. He could be kind of like an Anthony Barr in a way, not as big, of course, but in the sense that he can play some linebacker, he can play some edge rusher, he can rush the passer and stuff like that. I think that would be a good use of his skills. He's not really good in coverage, of course, as a linebacker, but still you can move around and use him to attack the quarterback, A-gap blitzes and stuff like that. Good athlete. He's got pretty good bend, actually, too. Decent size, but could get a little bit bigger if he stay at edge. Logan Fano, I really liked him. Actually, he surprised me, when I watched this film. When I got around to watching this film. Again, another really athletic, fast dude with good bend. He's got some moves. Again, still developing. I believe he did walk with the seniors at Utah, so I think it usually means they're coming out. Not always 100%, but I think it usually means they are coming out. But again, a guy that's, I think, kind of like a little bit of a sleeper as far as the big media is concerned. They don't really talk about him as much, but I think that definitely the talent is there for him to be really good.
Well, that's what happens when your older brother is in the draft too, or I should say your brother. I don't know which one's
younger.
older.
I think he's young. Yeah. I think either he's young. I think he's younger. I think Logan's older. Yeah, because Logan's a redshirt junior. And then after that, I got Isaiah Smith from SMU. He impressed me too as well. Another guy that's kind of just really toolsy, athletic, quick, got some good bend. Guy's still developing, of course, his pass rush, but there's definitely some talent there, some explosive off the snap. Just I think a guy you can really use. I think he started out as DPR, and then maybe if he develops some, he could be a starter. A little on the smaller side, so maybe not. He'd probably be a DPR, but he's like 244, so we'll see. He looks pretty much filled out, so I don't know if he can put on much more weight. But a guy I think it's a fun player. Derek Moore from Michigan. Kind of your, I don't know if I'd say traditional per se, but kind of your traditional Michigan edge rusher. He's a bigger dude, long arms, physical, strong, decent pass rusher, decent run defender, kind of like high floor, kind of low ceiling type of guy. He's going to come to the league and he's going to be a good rotational guy, give you, 4 or 5 sacks a year, something like that. Tyreek Sapp, he's like 6'2", 270, something like that. He's just a big, strong dude. He's a really good run defender. Not a great pass rusher, so he's not going to give you much as a pass rusher. But he's going to be able to stop the run, play some short yardage. You could probably kick him inside on some downs. You can put, rush from the inside, rush 3 tech, stuff like that on like long distance downs. After him, I got Max Llewellyn. I know some people like Max Llewellyn. I wasn't that high on him. I didn't like this film that much. I didn't see the high level athleticism from him. I just saw kind of like an average athlete, a guy who kind of relied a little bit too much on a spin move. I think that's not really going to be his game because he's not really super athletic. Decent run defender, not great. He's an okay pass rusher. I think he's kind of be again like a kind of lower end rotational type of pass rusher or defensive end in the league. Caden Curry, I liked his film. Not a ton of upside, but he's like one of those just, again, another guy that's kind of a traditional Ohio State edge rusher, just a big, strong dude. Defend the run, use power, a little short on the arms, but, he's going to give you effort. He's going to play hard. He's going to, again, attack the run, and he'll kick in some sacks here and there. Denny Sutton, again, like Jack mentioned, former 5-star guy, just one of the first team off the bus guys, just rock body, physically talented, but just it's never gotten there. I think he hasn't really improved much since like probably his sophomore year. Just the past, he flashes some stuff here and there. Like you'll see some flashes of some good pass rush moves, but just the ability to finish. There's not much bend. It just feels like it's not. You don't know if it's gonna get there by this time, because like again, it doesn't seem like he's improved over the last like 2 years. So you just kind of worry if like he's just kind of tapped out, like he is what he is at this point maybe. After him, I got Damon Wilson Jr., Missouri. Again, another guy that was really talented at Georgia, transferred to Missouri. I don't think he's as talented as his teammate Zion Young, but I think he's got some good talent. Good run defender. Not much of a pass rusher right now. Still kind of stuck in the, how they teach you to pass rush at Georgia, where you're just running through guys' faces. So I don't know about much upside he has. We'll see if he comes out or if he goes back. After him, I got Joshua Josephs from Tennessee, smaller edge rusher. He's sub 240 if I'm right. Just didn't really do anything that's super impressive. Has some good arm length. Decent athlete. Got a few pass rush moves, but just again, like I said, didn't really impress me at all. I think he's probably like a rotational guy if he can develop some more. After him, I got Wesley Williams. I kind of liked his film. I think he can be kind of like one of those guys that, again, kind of like a not this is level, of course, but kind of like a Justin Tuck type player where he plays defensive end on early downs and he kicks inside on like 3rd and long and stuff like that. Because I mean, he's listed he's 265, but he's pretty big, pretty thick. I wouldn't be surprised if he's a little bit bigger than that. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like 275 ish. But good athlete even for his size. I mean, there's even plays. I can't remember who it was against, but against one team, they had him dropping coverage, and he was actually covering. I think it was like a tight end or running back or something. Pretty good. So he was able to move from side to side and stuff like that. So he's got some decent athletic movement skills, but just hasn't really developed much as a pass rusher, of course. LT Overton, kind of the same thing in a way. Just a guy who's like 6'2", 275, just squatty, kind of thick body. Although he's not as athletic, I think Wesley Williams is probably a little more better of an athlete. But not much athleticism there. Usually uses just power and bull rush. I think he probably needs to lose weight and maybe hopefully gain some athleticism and some explosiveness and stuff if he wants to stay at edge. Otherwise, I think he should add bulk and be a defensive tackle, because I think he's kind of like an in-between like position right now, or size or athleticism, whatever you want to call it. At that 274, I think he either drop weight to be an edge or gain weight to be a defensive tackle. But he does have some talent, of course, but I just, like I said, he's just not really impressive as an edge at his size.
So, Jack, as you look at Brian's 25-player edge board, what are your initial thoughts or reactions?
So I guess the thing. So Brian talked about R. Mason Thomas, which I didn't have in mind. I don't think Drew had in his. I thought what was interesting was you've got R. Mason Thomas at 6, and Cassie Sal at 7, but you talked about them both as kind of probably DPRs in the NFL. So where, like, I know you said you don't think this is a great edge class, and to be honest, I'd agree. But like, where would you have them ranked in terms of like where you would take them in the draft? Because I'm just interested to kind of understand like what that then means for. I think that tells you a lot about how the draft class sits, but also how you value different kind of traits.
Yeah, just because the NFL still values pass rusher guys who can get after the quarterback. So that's why I have them a bit higher, even though they're going to be probably DPRs at the next level. So yeah, I mean, I still have a day 2, like a kind of like late day 2 grade on them. But I still think they may go a little bit higher just because the NFL values pass rushers. But of course, that arm length thing is going to be a question. So we'll see if teams look past that.
And Drew, do you have any initial reaction to Brian's board?
My initial reaction is to who isn't there. I just want to know what kind of went into the decision of you moving him to defensive tackle or not being edge for Ruben Bain.
Yeah, so I've talked about it before, but just I don't see the closing speed. I don't see the bend. I don't see anything special athletically out of him outside of his explosiveness. And he's listed at 6'3", 270, but to me he looks like 6'1", 6'2", like 280. And I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in that big unless he drops a bunch of weight before the combine. He just looks like a defensive tackle, and you see like times he has trouble finishing plays. That's why even if you look at his film too, but of course, if you look at his PFF grades or PFF numbers, like he has a bunch of pressures, but not like a lot of sacks, and it translates to film where you don't see him closing a lot, just making plays and I remember like a lot of people were talking up his Notre Dame film. I didn't like his Notre Dame film that much. I think he just took advantage of some bad Notre Dame tackles, and again I mentioned this as well. Like Eli Reardon pretty much handled him when he went up against him, and like that's not good because Eli Reardon's not that good. So I'm not super impressed with this film.
Okay, so I'm building the comparison graphic. Apparently, I did not have all three boards on it. Bear with me here for a second. Okay, I think I got it. Okay, so now I'm going to put all three boards side by side. I know it's really difficult to view on StreamYard. I believe it's a little bit easier to see if you're watching the podcast on YouTube. Okay, first question for Drew. Do you see a potential All-Pro anywhere on the edge list here?
Okay, so for me, or for my players, I think Ruben Bain, yes. Brian talked about how he didn't see it in the Notre Dame film. I'm kind of the opposite spectrum of that. I thought he was amazing in that. And I just see it a lot more than he does. If he does go to defensive tackle, like Brian said, I also see that. I think that could be a good move for him. And I think he could be very productive there. But I do see Bain as a future one. And then I don't think any of the Jack or Brian are going to say this, but I see Zion Young as developing into a potential All-Pro. I think in this class, we've talked about it. There's a lot of players who are either great against the run or are DPRs. There's not a lot of people who can do both. And I think Zion Young is one of those players that can develop into being a great pass rusher and a good run defender. So I'm going those two. Keldrick Falk would be the other one. Keldrick Falk and David Bailey, I think, are the other two that could. But each of them kind of struggle in one aspect of the game. So I don't know if I quite see it.
Okay, Jack, how about you? Do you see any potential All-Pro edges in this group?
I don't think there's any I would bet on to become an All-Pro. But there is like a small part of me that if I was picking one, and I know this is weird because he's not my top edge, it might be David Bailey. If only because like he is a very good pass rusher. And at the end of the day, like it or not, if a guy gets a dozen sacks in a season, there's a chance that will get you an All-Pro. Even if not a first team, maybe a second team All-Pro. Whereas I think Bain for me is like, he's not in the tier of like an Abdul Carter was last year for me. I think he's a good edge who could maybe have one or two like really good seasons, but I think he's probably just more a very good rather than a great NFL edge to me.
Okay, and then Brian, same question to you. Do you see any potential All-Pros in this edge class?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with Jack. Like, I think it's David Bailey has a chance. I think again because like what Jack said, just if you go out there and you get 12 sacks a season, 13 sacks a season, I mean, you're going to the Pro Bowl for sure, and then you could get All-Pro or second team All-Pro or what have you. And that's, like I said, it's really valuable in the NFL. So he's one of the guys I think. I kind of like what Drew was saying about Zion Young. I don't know if I'm that far yet, but I love his film. I like him a lot. I love it if he became an All-Pro. Yeah, but outside of those couple guys, I'm just looking at the list again, double checking. Like, yeah, I think those are the only guys I think that have a chance to becoming all like that high level of a player.
Okay, and then we see the three boards side by side, and I appreciate the feedback from Randy in the chat that apparently when 15 players are on a graphic, it becomes difficult to read on YouTube. Jack, as you look at the boards side by side,
mm-hmm.
Any prevailing thoughts or any reaction to as you compare the boards as you guys have gone through scouting reports together and such?
I think it's just really interesting to see this because, like, there isn't really any consensus, and I think that says a lot about this edge class. Like, even if you just take the top 5, like Brian's got Saka in his top 5, I've got Howell in mine. Drew's obviously got Zion Young, and it's like it's not even like you go, okay, everyone's got the same kind of 4 or 5. Like, if you look at maybe other groups in this class, maybe like wide receiver, I think everyone will probably have the same top 3 or 4 guys, and then it'll start to differ. Whereas edge feels like, I mean, we're even in a position where Brian sees the top edge on mine and Drew's board as a defensive tackle, and I don't think that's like some wild idea. Like, I think that just kind of speaks to this for me, as much as it might not be the class, if I was wanting an edge rusher, if my team needed an edge, this wouldn't be a class I'd be excited about. But these are the classes I find most interesting to kind of discuss because it's so much more wide open and there's so much more scope for that kind of difference, which makes it way more. There's no fun if we're all sat here with the same top 10. So I just think that the lack of consensus, I think, speaks to the nature of the class.
So Randy just piggybacked off of that, Jack. And Drew, what do you think about Randy's comment? And if you just had to look at all 3 edge boards together, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, that's about it. And I think that's because Falk we all see it very similarly. He's a great against the run. He's a very high floor player. At his very base, he's going to be a big, great run defender with the ability to increase his upside as a pass rusher. So, I mean, I think we all see that pretty clearly. I was looking and trying to see if I could find any other ones that are pretty similar. And I think TJ Parker is one that we all have top 5. That's like one of the only ones as well. And then maybe Mateo Uyangalele we have fairly similar. But other than that, it's cool to see like the different perspectives. We watched the same film. We watched probably pretty similar games, but it's all just completely different.
Yeah, I'm even trying to look in the top 10s.
Maybe Cassius Howell.
We've all got Howell.
fairly similar.
I'm higher, but we've all got Howell in there.
Mm-hmm.
So is Romello Height in everybody's top 10?
I think I forgot him. I think he would have made my top 15, but I think I just forgot him while putting my board together.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
I'm the only one flying the flag for height.
Yeah.
I say flying the flag. He's 9, so the flag's at half mast.
Well, okay. I'm also going to shout out, Jack, where do you have Jayshon Barham? Just out of curiosity.
So I'll be honest, I watched him over the summer as a linebacker, and I haven't regraded him as an edge. I didn't love his linebacker tape, but I haven't rewatched him as an edge.
And I'm going to say that to me, it feels like the Michigan edges, which would be Barham and Moore, are being consistently seen as the same. They're just outside everybody's top 10. Right. So like if you're in round 3 and you need an edge, it feels like the Michigan players are going to go in round 3. So they're not on Jack's board, but Brian and Drew have Barham in about the same spot. Brian, where do you have Derek Moore out of curiosity?
He was on my list. I think he was in the top. He was in the top 25 for sure. Are you talking about like as far as round grade?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. Like in that 3rd to 4th round grade, I think.
Yeah.
In that range.
Yeah. So I do think the point that Jack made, I thought it was an awesome point that like the boards really aren't anything alike. And you really have to dig to see the players that everybody sees the same way. Jack, I thought that was an outstanding observation. And then like I have to dig deep. Because here's like a great example. Like Brian has Logan Fano in his top 15, and there's other draft professors that said, "Why did you ask me to podcast on him?" And Brian probably knows who that draft professor is, right? Like, so I mean, even the class is definitely wild. I think and. You know, the thing about this edge group, because there are so many DPRs,
Mhm.
These are going to be guys that can be drafted for special teams.
Yep.
Right? Like a lot of these edges, just to make a roster, they can play special teams and make a 53-man roster that way. But that doesn't mean that you're going to rely on them to get snap volume, like on defense. They can make the team, but they may not be getting snap volume unless unless you're playing on a team that's in like an obvious where you need a DPR because the offense is in an obvious passing situation. So, Jack, question: how many of the edges do you see? Like in the I think you had like 19 ranked. So out of the 19 you had ranked, how many do you see as DPRs out of the 19?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me
And
pull
then
my.
Drew and Brian, I'm going to give you guys the same question.
Oh, okay. Let me look at my list too.
To be honest, I mean, height is probably he's either a DPR or like a kind of hybrid. I think I mentioned when we did the pod on him, like some kind of hybrid, like pass rusher, or he drops into coverage. I don't think he's a full-time edge. Other than that, I think you're looking at Saka, maybe Lubin, but I think he can be a little bit more than that. Some of them feel like they're on the border, right? Because I know I've got Llewellyn quite high, but like I kind of wouldn't be totally surprised if he ends up kind of just in a pass rushing role. So yeah, but Saka is a definite, and I think height is a form of DPR. Whether I've not got him listed in like my grading sheet as DPR because I've got a separate category for like a hybrid, but it's near enough the same thing.
Okay, Drew, how about you? How many of the edges do you see as being like a one-dimensional DPR?
I was looking at. I might have had a couple more. Right now, I think Armason Thompson is. I just think with his size and all that, I don't know right now how much he'll contribute to the run game. Get my list pulled up.
So then that would imply that if it's only one player, that the other 14.
No, I mean there's a couple. There's a couple more.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, I think Gabe Akis is in that kind of danger zone where if he doesn't improve, I could see him being there. Despite his size, he's got good size, but he just really struggles. As I said earlier, against the read option, it's if you watch some of the tape, every time he misplays in, it's just something there. And then one, I don't think a lot of people will agree on this, but I think another player, I'm not saying he is, but is kind of in that danger zone is David Bailey. I was lower. I mean, I was a lot lower than both of you guys are on him. But I just think against the run right now, I wouldn't say he's quite a liability, which is why I don't think he will be, because he can make plays. But I think he's kind of in that red zone of being potentially that against the NFL competition.
You've kind of got to do something with him, I think, is it? Like he's not a. So I watched the bit, like I say, the conference championship game, and when he's working from like a condensed split and like tighter alignments, he is just getting pushed around. But then there are reps where he's like given a bit more space to work, not asked to kind of work through as much traffic. So yeah, even though I don't see him as a DPR, I know exactly what you mean, because he's not a guy I just go, I don't care what the front is, I don't care what the offense is doing. He's my edge. Like there is a bit more scheming.
If someone doesn't get their hands on him, he's making a play in the backfield, which is why I don't think he's limited in that at all right now. But I mean, it just kind of worries me if a lineman does get his hands on him, and 90% of the time he's just been eliminated from a play.
Yeah.
And Brian, what's your DPR percentage like in your top 15? How many of those guys do you think are DPR only at the NFL level?
I'm trying to look here. Yeah, I mean Mason Thomas, Howell, probably. Maybe Fano. I think in my top 15, that's probably about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And also for the audience, DPR is not a negative, right? I mean, you can have a DPR like Leonard Floyd is getting $10 million $10 million 1-year deals repeatedly. He just team hops from season to season, and he's a DPR. He can do maybe a little bit more at the NFL level, but you can have a 10-year career as a DPR. If you can win with a pass rush and you're a DPR, you can be getting $10 million one-year deals for like 5 or 6 straight years at the end of your career. So it's an in-demand skill that is not meant to slight any player that gets the label. But at the same time, if your team needs to stop the run, you may not be looking at David Bailey in round 1. Right? Like, he's a good edge, good prospect. But if your team's Achilles heel is run defense, I'm going to make a prediction. I don't think David Bailey is a Dallas Cowboy. If you trade Micah Parsons,
Jerry will not go for David Bailey. No way. Yeah,
and of course I'm saying that to 2 Packers fans. Okay, so Jack, who do you think is the most likely Packers edge out of this list?
That's a good question. Thing is, it's so there's a part of me that thinks they could like Malachi Lawrence. Brian might say like measurables wise, I don't know. Like he feels like he's got tools, and like they're quite funny about size. I know he's shorter, but Malachi Lawrence would be maybe I'm just kind of wish casting here, but that'd probably be the one I'd go with.
That's okay. So Drew, I know we did some Saints mock drafts yesterday, and I know how much you like Zion Young. Mm-hmm. So pick 2 possible Saints edges, one of which is probably Zion Young.
Okay, I mean, the one that honestly, from the past, it could be a little bit different now because they got new coaching and all that. But the one player to me that feels the most Saints pick with past years is Keldrick Falk. He seems like someone, the size, the athleticism, the run defense, that the Saints would just fall in love with.
Yep.
So he's probably the one. And then I'll split it between Ruben Bain and Zion Young. I like Ruben Bain, but I don't know how much that's the Saints. Maybe if he falls to pick 5, I think they would right now. And then Zion Young, if he is in the second round, I think just once again, that big size. The Saints really like their big edge rushers. It kind of to a fault at times. Hasn't worked out for them recently, but they do love them. So I think Zion Young is another play they could potentially look to.
Okay, so Brian, I'll give you the final Packers word on this one.
Who
do you think is the most likely Packers edge out of all the players you've watched?
Yeah, I don't think they draft one early this year. I mean, even though Gary may be gone and JJ may be gone and stuff like that, I think they're still pretty stacked up. But I mean, I agree with Jack though as far as Malachi Lawrence. I mean, he fits their size thresholds. They like the bigger guys in the early rounds. Later rounds, they'll take some smaller guys, but so he fits fine. I think what's it called? Even Zion Young would fit if he slips a little bit. He would fit. He's right there in the quote unquote kind of bigger-ish edge rushers. Vincent Anthony's a bigger guy, so he would fit too. Will Heldwood's a bigger guy, so he would fit too. There's a decent list of like bigger guys that they would like. But they're not going to take Cleb Lubin. They're not going to take Armies and Thomas. Those guys are too small for them. They're not going to take Romello Height. Those type of guys.
Okay. Well, we have been going for an hour. Why don't we pause for podcaster identification? So, Jack, you want to let everybody know about the touchdown? I think it's the touchdown, right? That's your UK website. What else that you do? Yes.
Yeah. So, most of my work's over at the touchdown. So we've got loads of stuff coming up as we're kind of getting into draft season, but also bowl season. So if you want college football content, draft content, that's where to go. Twitter as well, handle down there. And then, hopefully again this season be doing Cheesehead TV draft guide for Packers focused stuff. So, and then obviously, here on Sundays. So that's me.
Yep. Brian.
Pretty much the same stuff as Jack. Just here with my Twitter handle there, BMonfy NFL. You can catch me on all my thoughts and stuff on Twitter there. I post clips. I'll post or quote tweet. Sorry, I can't talk. When you see the postings for Senior Bowl, Hula Bowl, whatever, all the bowls, I'll put a little comment in there about the player or something like that. So I'll put that. Of course, my Substack, which I haven't updated in like a week or two, but there's that. And then of course, like Jack, with hopefully it'll be in the Cheesehead Team Draft Guide for any Packers fans. And I mean, even if you're not a Packers fan, there's still scouting reports in there, so there's still stuff for people to read, even if you're not a Packers fan.
And Drew.
Yeah, the one non-Packers fan here, besides Jim, but follow the Twitter X handle at Drew M. Collings. I write for New Orleans Saints site online called Who Dat Dish, and I also have a Saints podcast called The Dawn Discussions that I'm on once a week.
Yeah,
I'll be back tomorrow too, starting tomorrow, Monday night podcast.
Yeah, okay, you just got it. 'Cause I was going to say, so you can catch Drew twice a week on Draft Professor. You can catch him. He's Sunday mornings now, and he'll be Monday nights. And then he'll also be, once he's done on Sundays, he'll also be pivoting to Saturdays.
Yes, I believe.
With actually Brian's old podcast partner, Anthony Russo. And then in addition to that, so Jack is Sunday mornings with Drew and Brian now. And then starting in January, the Sunday 9 a.m. show is going to be Jack Brentnall and Devin Jackson. And then Brian's podcast time is going to shift a little bit later in the day on Sunday. Yep. So you will see some slight changes to the Sunday morning lineup, but it will be Jack Brentnall live from the UK while the rest of us are having coffee somewhere in the USA. So I don't know what the time difference is between Brian and Jack, right? Because Brian's on the West Coast. But and I know Drew, you're a few time zones over too. So we got a few draft professors waking up early for this one.
Yeah, we're all over.
Yeah. But for Jack, Drew, Brian, myself, and the 110 people at the Draft Professor, thank you so much for tuning in. We'll be doing a defensive tackle big board with this group next week. Yep. Please enjoy your football Sunday. And we will see you on a podcast again in about 20 minutes, everybody. Thank you very much.